Hey everyone, welcome back. For this deep dive, we're going to be cracking open Adapt or Die,
Oh, yeah.
The New Rules for Masculine Survival by Conrad Riker.
This is uh this is gonna be a good one.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of you guys have been thinking about this stuff lately.
Mhm.
I mean, there's the kind of hidden contracts, right? Like
Yeah.
the subtle ways that society can put men at a disadvantage. And I think that you're really going to connect with this one.
Yeah, it's a powerful book for
Mhm.
sure. Riker doesn't pull any punches. He just lays it out there.
Uh-huh.
The challenges that men face in modern society, and he offers some pretty bold solutions for reclaiming your power, you know?
And he starts right off the bat, like he argues that modern society has just totally devalued traditional male roles,
Yeah,
and that's led to what he calls a crisis of masculinity. Have you felt that in your own life? Like
absolutely.
those old blueprints for what it means to be a man just
Yeah.
don't apply anymore. It's like,
Yeah, and he uses hard-hitting statistics to illustrate this point. For example, he highlights the declining number of male CEOs in Fortune 500 companies.
wow.
And on the flip side, the overrepresentation of men in homelessness and suicide
Some
statistics.
were caught in a bind.
Yeah.
Society tells us to be sensitive and emotionally open, but then when we struggle, the support system just isn't there.
And that's a key part of Riker's argument. He really digs into how feminist ideology has seeped into institutions,
Oh yeah.
like education and law, creating systems that can actually work against men.
Mm.
He brings up things like the hashtag Me Too movement
Oh
and
yeah.
affirmative action policies as examples. Now, whether you agree with his conclusions or not,
Yeah.
certainly thought-provoking.
It really gets you thinking.
Mm.
Have you ever felt like you were judged or treated differently simply because you're a man?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Riker calls these subtle biases covert contracts,
Yeah.
unspoken rules that can hold men back.
Yeah, he argues that these covert contracts exist in all areas of life, from the workplace to relationships. And one area where he sees these contracts playing out in a big way is marriage.
And this is where things get really interesting,
Yeah.
especially for those of us who are already married. Riker doesn't mince words. He sees marriage, especially in the context of no-fault divorce laws,
Right.
as a potential financial trap for men.
He really breaks down the financial risks involved, highlighting the fact that men often end up shouldering a heavier financial burden in a divorce.
Hmm.
He even shares some pretty shocking anecdotes from the book, like the story of a man who lost a staggering 42% of his net worth
Wow.
in a divorce settlement.
That's brutal.
Yeah.
So it's a stark reminder that marriage is a legal contract,
Mm-hmm.
not just a romantic fairy tale.
And Riker argues that men need to be aware of these potential pitfalls going into a marriage.
So does he think men should just avoid marriage altogether?
Not necessarily. While he acknowledges the risks of traditional marriage, Riker also explores alternative relationship models that might offer more balanced and equitable partnerships. We'll get into those in part two of our deep dive, but for now,
Okay.
I think it's important to highlight the more empowering aspects of Riker's approach.
Right.
He doesn't just want to point out problems. He wants to offer solutions.
And that's what I appreciate about this book. He gives men practical strategies for reclaiming their masculinity, for taking control of their lives.
He talks about the importance of physical fitness,
Yeah.
building strength, and achieving financial independence. These are things that are within your control, regardless of external circumstances.
I love how he emphasizes the importance of financial independence.
Hmm.
It's like he's saying, don't rely on anyone else for your security. Build your own empire.
Yeah.
He's a big proponent of entrepreneurship and creating multiple streams of income.
That's a key theme throughout the book. He wants men to be self-reliant,
Right.
to have the resources and the freedom to make their own choices.
And it's not just about money, right?
Mm.
He also talks about the importance of building strong male friendships and finding mentors.
Absolutely. Riker believes that strong male bonds are essential for mental health and personal growth.
Yeah.
He sees these relationships as a source of support, accountability, and shared experience.
Yeah.
Think about it. Do you have guys in your life who you can truly rely on, who challenge you to be better?
Yeah.
That's what Riker is talking about.
It's like building a tribe,
Yeah,
a brotherhood of men who understand what you're going through and have your back no matter what.
exactly. Riker argues that modern society often isolates men, but we can combat that by consciously cultivating these supportive networks.
So in this first part, we've explored Riker's view of the challenges men face, but we've also touched on some of the solutions he offers.
Yeah.
It's about taking control, building strength, and forging your own path.
And in part 2, we'll delve deeper into those practical strategies, exploring his insights on relationships, finances, and even biohacking
Yeah, okay.
to optimize your physical and mental well-being.
So much good stuff to come. But before we move on, think about this. Where do you see these covert contracts playing out in your own life? And what steps are you already taking to reclaim your power? Hold on to those thoughts, and we'll pick up the conversation in part 2.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Adapt or Die. You know, we've already covered a lot of ground,
Yeah.
but there's so much more to unpack.
Yeah, it's like Riker throws a grenade into our assumptions about how the world works, especially when it comes to relationships.
Right. And the last part, we touched on his view of marriage as a contract.
Right.
He argues that men need to be aware of the potential pitfalls, especially in the context of no-fault divorce laws.
It's a bit of a wake-up call, especially for guys who've bought into that whole romantic ideal of happily ever after. But Riker doesn't just leave us hanging.
Right.
He actually explores some alternative relationship models that might be more appealing in today's world.
He does. In the second half of the book, he dives into cohabitation agreements and even discusses the concept of arrangements, where financial expectations are clearly defined up front.
I imagine some people might find that a little cold.
Yeah.
You know, reducing relationships to just a set of terms and conditions.
Riker acknowledges that these conversations can be difficult, but he emphasizes the importance of transparency and open communication from the very beginning. He believes that being upfront about your needs and expectations can actually lead to stronger, more sustainable relationships.
So it's not about taking the romance out of it,
Right.
but about being realistic
Right.
and protecting yourself.
Precisely. He even offers advice on how to approach these conversations with your partner in a respectful and constructive way.
I think a lot of guys would appreciate that practical guidance. It's one thing to talk about these issues in theory,
Yeah.
but it's another to actually navigate them in real life.
Absolutely. Riker doesn't just offer abstract theories. He provides actionable advice that you can apply to your own life.
And that's what I find so valuable about his work. It's not just about complaining about the problems. It's about empowering men to create solutions.
Right. And that leads us to another crucial element of Riker's approach, financial independence. He dedicates a whole section to this, outlining strategies for taking control of your finances.
He's a huge advocate for entrepreneurship, right?
Yes.
He sees it as a path to freedom and self-reliance.
He does. He encourages men to create their own opportunities, to be their own bosses, and to build multiple streams of income.
I remember he had some pretty strong opinions about the traditional 9-to-5 grind.
Oh, yeah.
He argues that the old model of relying on a single job for security is becoming increasingly outdated.
That's right. He talks about how technology and globalization have disrupted traditional industries and created new possibilities for men who are willing to adapt.
It's about having more control over how you earn a living, about being proactive rather than reactive.
Exactly. Riker believes that financial independence is crucial for men's self-esteem and their ability to make choices that align with their values.
It's like he's saying, don't wait for permission. Create your own opportunities. Build your own empire. And that's a message that resonates with a lot of men today, especially those who feel disillusioned with the traditional paths to success.
For sure.
Now, one thing that really stood out to me in this section was Riker's discussion of biohacking.
Yeah.
It's a pretty intriguing concept, this idea of optimizing your biology for peak performance.
It does sound a bit futuristic, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But Riker argues that modern lifestyles, with all the stress and environmental toxins, can actually deplete men's testosterone levels.
And testosterone, of course, is a key hormone for men's physical and mental health.
Right. Riker sees biohacking as a way to counteract those negative influences and reclaim your vitality.
But what exactly does biohacking involve? I'm picturing some high-tech lab with needles and test tubes.
It's not quite that extreme.
Okay.
Riker advocates for a more holistic approach. He talks about things like getting enough sleep, managing stress through mindfulness practices, and optimizing your diet to support hormone production.
So it's about making conscious choices to support your overall well-being.
Exactly. He even suggests exploring natural supplements and therapies that have been shown to boost testosterone levels.
It's fascinating to think that we can influence our biology through lifestyle changes and targeted interventions.
Riker believes that men have more control over their physical and mental health than they realize.
It's about taking ownership, about becoming the architect of your own well-being.
Precisely. And that theme of ownership extends to Riker's discussion of leadership,
Right.
which he sees as a fundamental aspect of masculinity.
I remember he had some interesting thoughts on how society often undermines male leadership.
Yeah.
He argues that traditional qualities of male leadership like assertiveness, decisiveness, and risk-taking are often demonized as toxic.
He talks about how this can lead to men feeling hesitant to step into leadership roles, both in their personal lives and in the wider world.
It's like we're told to be strong and decisive, but then when we display those qualities, we're labeled as aggressive or domineering.
It's a difficult balance to strike, and Riker acknowledges that he doesn't advocate for a return to some outdated macho model of leadership.
So what kind of leadership does he envision?
He emphasizes the importance of finding a balance between strength and empathy,
Okay.
between assertiveness and respect. He believes that true leadership is about inspiring and empowering others,
Right.
not about dominating or controlling them.
It's about stepping up, taking responsibility, and setting a positive example for others to follow.
Exactly. And Riker doesn't limit this concept of leadership to the workplace or the public sphere.
Right.
He believes that men have a crucial role to play as leaders within their families as well.
This is something that's been lost in many modern families, don't you think? Yeah. The idea of a father as a leader, as a provider of structure and guidance.
Riker argues that this role is just as important today, even as family structures evolve. He believes that men need to reclaim their role as leaders within the family, not as tyrants, but as guides and mentors.
That resonates with me. It's not about being the boss. It's about being a positive influence, a role model for your children.
Right. He encourages fathers to be actively involved in their children's lives, teaching them values, providing discipline, and instilling a sense of purpose.
It's about leading by example, demonstrating the qualities of character and resilience that we want to see in the next generation.
And that brings us to another key element of Riker's vision for the future of masculinity: mentorship.
I think a lot of guys would love to be mentors, but they might not know where to start.
Riker provides some practical advice on that as well. He suggests reaching out to youth organizations,
Oh, yeah.
schools, or even just connecting with younger guys in your own community.
He also talks about the importance of sharing your own experiences, both the successes and the failures, right?
Yes. He believes that honesty and vulnerability are key elements of effective mentorship.
It's not about pretending to have all the answers. It's about being real, being relatable, and showing younger guys that it's okay to ask for help and learn from your mistakes.
Exactly. It's about passing on the wisdom and the tools that have helped you navigate the challenges of being a man in today's world, in a sense. That's what we're doing here on this podcast.
That's a great point. We're all in this together, and by sharing our experiences and insights, we can support each other on this journey of reclaiming our masculinity.
And in the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore Riker's vision for the future of masculinity and what it means to thrive in a world that's constantly changing.
So stick with us for part 3, where we'll get into some really thought-provoking stuff about the role of men in society, the importance of purpose, and the legacy we want to leave behind. Welcome back, guys. This is it, the final part of our deep dive into Adapt or Die. And, we've explored a lot of Riker's ideas about the challenges men face today, those hidden contracts, right?
Yeah.
The shifting landscape of relationships, the pressure to achieve financial independence.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the bigger picture here? Where does Riker see masculinity heading in the future?
Well, that's a great question, and it's something that he tackles head on in the final chapters of the book.
Okay.
He believes that the future of masculinity isn't about clinging to the past,
Right.
or trying to fit into some outdated mold.
Yeah.
It's about evolution, about adapting those core values of strength, responsibility, and purpose to the modern world.
So not throwing out the old playbook entirely,
Right.
but rewriting it for the 21st century.
Exactly. Riker sees it as a process of rediscovering those essential masculine traits and finding new ways to express them.
Okay.
For example, he talks about the importance of men stepping up as leaders,
Yeah.
not just in the traditional sense of authority, but in all areas of life.
So leading by example, being a role model for others.
Yes, he encourages men to be leaders in their families, their communities, and even in their own personal growth. He argues that true leadership isn't about dominance or control. It's about inspiring and empowering others.
That makes sense. It's not about fitting into some predefined box of what a leader should be.
Right.
But about using your unique strengths and skills to make a positive impact.
Absolutely. And one of the ways that Riker believes men can make that positive impact is by focusing on their purpose.
Okay.
He argues that having a clear sense of purpose is essential for men's well-being and fulfillment.
Yeah, and it's easy to feel lost or adrift in today's world, right?
Mhm.
With so many conflicting messages about what it means to be a man. So how does Riker suggest we find that purpose?
He encourages men to reflect on their values, to identify their passions, and to connect with something larger than themselves.
Oh,
This could be through spirituality, creative pursuits, community involvement, or any other avenue that aligns with your core beliefs.
so it's not necessarily about finding some grand predetermined purpose,
Right.
but about actively seeking out what gives your life meaning.
Exactly. Riker believes that purpose is something we cultivate, not something we stumble upon.
Right.
He challenges men to take risks, to pursue their dreams, and to never settle for a life that feels empty or unfulfilling.
That's a powerful message. It's about taking ownership of your life,
Mm-hmm.
about deciding what kind of man you want to be, and actively creating that reality.
And that brings us to another important aspect of Riker's vision: legacy.
Okay.
He believes that men have a responsibility to leave the world a better place than they found it.
That sounds pretty daunting.
Yeah.
Does he expect every man to become a superhero or a world leader?
Not at all. He recognizes that legacy doesn't have to be about grand gestures or achieving some monumental feat.
Okay.
It can be about the small, everyday acts of kindness, courage, and integrity.
So being a good father, a supportive friend,
Mm-hmm.
a mentor to someone who needs guidance, those things can be a legacy.
Absolutely. It's about living a life that matters, a life that makes a difference in the lives of others. And Riker argues that when we live with purpose and intention, we naturally leave a positive mark on the world.
It's about the ripple effect,
Yeah.
how our actions can inspire and uplift those around us, even in subtle ways.
Precisely. And that brings us back to the core message of adapt or die.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about clinging to some rigid definition of masculinity, but about evolving, about embracing the challenges of the modern world and finding new ways to express those essential masculine traits.
Right.
It's about taking responsibility for your life, for your well-being, for the impact you have on the world.
It's been an incredible journey, exploring Riker's ideas. I think this deep dive has given us a lot to think about, both in terms of the challenges we face and the opportunities that lie ahead.
I agree. Adapt or Die is a powerful book, and whether you agree with everything Riker says or not, it's a valuable resource for any man who's seeking to navigate the complexities of the modern world.
And for anyone who wants to dive deeper into these ideas, you can find Adapt or Die, The New Rules for Masculine Survival on Amazon Kindle and Google Playbooks.
It's a book that will challenge you, inspire you, and equip you with the tools you need to thrive in today's world.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.